Hello everyone and welcome back to the Commander's Forge. My name is Andy Bentley and the Forge is an area for me to talk about Magic, Commander, and anything else while I try and navigate these turbulent times. Now, this week I do want to talk about the things going on with Commander. Due to the last announcement of banned cards. I was not the biggest fan of all four of those cards being banned, but I did not take anything out on the rules committee. I just made my statement that thinking that maybe two of those cards would be better to be banned at once, and then later down the road, maybe do the other two. That said, a lot of people did take it out on the rules committee, and because of that, the rules committee is no longer the ruling body of the Commander format. They have turned over control to Wizards of the Coast. I get why they had to do this. I get why they felt like they needed to do this. And I don't know how I feel about it yet. So let's kind of break it down. Because of the death threats, the literal death threats that members of the RC were getting, they came to the decision to let Wizards take over the format. Wizards is putting the design team in charge of it, from what I understand. And they've already released some things about how they're going to introduce like a new power level system thing that I still don't necessarily like. It all started with an announcement from Wizards on September 30th about how everything happened. And the takeaway there is, in participation with members of the existing Rules Committee, they are announcing that the Rules Committee is giving management of the Commander format over to the game design team of Wizards of the Coast. That I get again. There is how they want to break it down into brackets. So instead of being like a 1 to 10 power level, it would be a 1 to 4 power level. And then certain cards would fit in with certain levels. The thing I don't like about that is a lot of times one singular card in a type of deck does not make that deck a certain level. Things like, they're talking Vampiric Tutor. I have a Vampiric Tutor in a deck just because I happen to own a Vampiric Tutor. Does that make that deck automatically a 4? Because it really sits around 3. So I don't know if this new way of determining a deck's level is really gonna be all that great. And hopefully we can flesh it out to a point where it makes enough sense to enough people that it's not confusing to everybody. I do hope that they don't do the thing I'm really worried about, which is blatantly unbanning cards from the Commander ban list just so they can slap them into precons. That's the number one thing I'm worried about, is them just abusing that. That said, they really do need to tone down their designed for Commander cards. That's how we ended up in this whole situation with Nadu. It was designed for Commander, and it just got to the point where even Commander was like, we don't need that. Same thing with Dockside. Very good card. Too good sometimes, and that's what led to it being banned. I guess I just want to wrap up this section with saying, it is never appropriate to threaten somebody with violence over the internet because they don't adhere to your views. And That is why we're in this situation now. I get there are big feelings attached, but handle it like a man. Shove that into a bottle, push it as far down as you can, and never let it see the light of day. Alright, that said, I'm going to take a quick break to regather my thoughts, because Lord knows I haven't had it yet. And then I'm going to talk about a deck that I'm working on, because that's what I do. I'm a brewer. I work on decks. I'll be right back. And we're back. Now, I know that Boros equipment has been a thing for as long as Boros has been a thing. But it's never stuck with me. I've never found one that I liked. And I kind of, sort of put it together, but not in the way most people would think. So, let's start with who I ended up with for the commander, and that is Mary, Squire of Rohan. It is a red and a white for a 2/2 halfling knight. It has haste, first strike as long as it's equipped, and whenever you attack with Mary and another legendary creature, you draw a card. So it handles one of the first things that's always a problem in Boros, and that is drawing cards. But that said, this well-being Boros equipment does also have a sub-theme of legendary creatures. And the first thing I want to talk about is some of the ones that are either going to make Mary hit harder or help Mary survive. First up, we have Bruce Tarl, Boris Herder. 2, red-white for a 3/3 human ally. Whenever he enters the battlefield or attacks, target creature you control gains double strike and lifelink till end of turn. We do have to face the one inevitable thing of Boros equipment. It is a Voltron deck. You do want to stack things on your commander to try to take people out with commander damage. Bruce is a good way to get that done. Next up, we have Kelith, Sunmane Familiar, 1 and a white for a 1/1 horse. Whenever a commander you control attacks, put a +1/+1 counter on it. It has partner, but in here, it's just to make our guy hit harder with first strike on every attack. Urbrask the Hidden, 3 red for a 4/4 Phyrexian Praetor. Creatures you control have haste. Creatures your opponents control enter the battlefield tapped. Our creatures having haste is good, but also slowing our opponents down for a turn by having all of their creatures enter tapped helps us get through. We have Jorkadine the Prevailer. 3 red-white for a 5/4 human warrior with first strike and metalcraft. Creatures you control get +3/+0 as long as you control 3 or more artifacts. And again, if Mary has first strike, and that makes him a 5-power creature, he just can get through most things. Then we have Landroval, Horizon Witness, 4 and a white for a 3/4 bird noble with flying. Whenever 2 or more creatures you control attack a player, target attacking creature without flying gains flying till end of turn. So again, attack with Mary, Landroval, and Jorkadine, and then all of a sudden Mary has flying. Next up we have Gwenahir, Greatest of the Eagles, 4 and a white for a 5/5 bird noble with flying. Whenever Gwenahir attacks, target attacking creature gains flying till end of turn, and at the beginning of each end step, if you gained 3 or more life this turn, create a 3/3 white bird creature token with flying, and whenever this creature attacks, target attacking creature gains flying till end of turn. I don't have a ton of ways to gain life in this deck, but I do have some. And last up in this category, I have Taranika, a Crowan veteran. 1 white for a 3/3 human soldier with vigilance. Whenever she attacks, untap another target creature you control. Until end of turn, that creature has base power and toughness 4/4 and gains indestructible. Taranika has been underwhelming in most places where you find her. Just being able to attack with her as a 3/3 with vigilance and marry as a 2/2, but then you untap him, make him a 4/4. That's a very decent like turn 4 attack, you know. But we can't talk Boros equipment without talking about the creatures that care about Boros equipment stuff. So first up, we have Cole the Forge Master. A red-white for a 2/2 dwarf warrior. Whenever another non-token creature you control dies, if it was enchanted or equipped, return to its owner's hand. And creature tokens you control that are enchanted or equipped get +1/+1. This one does not care so much about the tokens, but being able to protect a creature that has stuff on it, it's a good way to protect your commander, so you don't have to continually pay the commander tax on it, and we keep going from there. Next up, we have Aster, Bearer of Blades, 2, red-white for a 4/4 human warrior. Whenever he enters the battlefield, look at the top 7 cards of your library. You may reveal an equipment or vehicle from among them, put it into your hand, put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. Equipment you control have equipped for 1, and vehicles you control have crew for 1. I don't believe I have any vehicles in here, but decreasing equip costs is always good in this kind of deck. Next up, we have Brunor, Battlehammer, 2, red-white for a 5/3 dwarf warrior. Each creature you control gets +2/+0 for each equipment attached to it, and you may pay 0 rather than pay the equip cost of the first equip ability you activate each turn. Next up, we have Rook, Hexgold Nabber, 2 and a red for a 2/2 Goblin Rebel with Trample and Haste. Whenever an equipped creature you control other than Rook, Hexgold Nabber attacks or dies, you may attach all equipment attached to that creature to Rook. So, he is there to pick up some things if we do want to get him, I don't know, through. But I don't know. He's just there as kind of like a backup. We can make this guy big, right? Next up, we have Tiana, Ship's Caretaker, 3 red-white for a 3/3 Angel Artificer with flying and first strike. Whenever an aura or equipment you control is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, you may return it to its owner's hand at the beginning of the next end step. So she's there to help protect our equipment. Next up, we have Jorkadeen, First Gold Warden, red-white for a 2/2 Human Rebel. He has Trample. Whenever he attacks, he gets +X/+X till end of turn, where X is the number of equipped creatures you control. Then if his power is 4 or greater, draw a card. So this is another way we can draw cards. We don't necessarily have to equip a ton of creatures. If you give him an equipment that makes his power 4, you still draw the card. And finally, in this little section here, we have Nahiri, Forged in Fury, 4 red-white for a 5/4 Core Artificer with affinity for equipment. Whenever an equipped creature you control attacks, exile the top card of your library. You may play that card this turn. You may cast equipment spells this way without paying their mana cost. So this is a good way to get equipment down for free, to get a land if you've missed your land drop. And yeah. Now, let's talk equipment. And, well, yes, there's a bunch of other stuff in this list that I'm not necessarily naming. I am going to talk about all of the equipment that we're running. And I'm going to start with the non-swords. So first up, we have Gold Vein Pick, which is a 2-mana equipment. Equipped creature gets +1/+1. Whenever it deals combat damage to a player, make a treasure token. It equips for 1. So this helps us ramp. We've got Basilisk Collar, 1-mana equipment. Equipped creature has Death Touch and Lifelink. Equips for 2. So this helps him get through, but also, if we have Gwynnahir out, is a way for us to gain life. We have Anduril, Flame of the West, 3-mana equipment. Equipped creature gets +3/+1. Whenever the equipped creature attacks, create 2 tapped 1/1 white spirit creature tokens with flying. If that creature is legendary, instead create 2 of those tokens that are tapped and attacking. It equips for 2. Next up, we have the Swiftfoot boots. These are a mainstay in just about any commander deck. They are 2-mana equipment. Equipped creature has hexproof and haste. Equips for 1. It's just a way to protect the boy. Next up, we have the Sword of Vengeance. 3-mana equipment. Equipped creature gets +2/+0. Has first strike, vigilance, trample, haste, and equips for 3. And I think that brings us to the ones that we're gonna always see in a deck like this. We're going to start up just in the order that I have them in this pile. The first one up is Sword of Forge and Frontier. 3-mana equipment. Creature gets +2/+2, has protection from red and green. Whenever the equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, exile the top 2 cards of your library. You may play those cards this turn. You may play an additional land this turn. It equips for 2. Next up, we have Sword of War and Peace, which is 3-mana equipment. Equipped creature gets +2/+2, protection from red and white. Whenever it deals combat damage to a player, the sword deals damage equal to that player, equal to the number of cards in his or her hand, and you gain 1 life for each card in your hand. It equips for 2. This is another way we can gain some life for going here. Next, we have Sword of Once and Future. 3-mana equipment. Equipped creature gets +2/+2, has protection from blue and black. Whenever it deals combat damage to a player, surveil 2, then you may cast an instant or sorcery spell with mana value 2 or less from your graveyard without paying its mana cost. If the spell would be put into your graveyard, exile it instead. Equips for 2. There are a few things that we can hit in this deck. It's mostly here just to give us the pro blue and black. Sword of Light and Shadows up next. 3-mana equipment. Equipped creature gets +2/+2, has protection from white and black. Whenever it deals combat damage to a player, you gain 3 life, and you may return up to 1 target creature card from your graveyard to your hand. Equips for 2, so that's another way we can gain the life we need for Gwen here. Sword of Sinew and Steel, 3-mana equipment, +2/+2, protection from black and red. When they deal combat damage to a player, destroy up to 1 target planeswalker and up to 1 target artifact. Equips for 2. Sword of Fire and Ice, 3-mana equipment, +2/+2, protection from red and blue. When the equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, the sword deals 2 damage to target creature or player, and you draw a card. So, another way for us to sling some damage and draw a card. Next up, we have the Sword of Body and Mind. 3-mana equipment. Equipped creature gets +2/+2, has protection from green and blue. Whenever equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, you create a 2/2 wolf creature token, and that player mills 10 cards, equips for 2. And finally, the Sword of Feast and Famine. 3-mana equipment. Equipped creature gets +2/+2, has pro, black, and green. Whenever the equipped creature does combat damage to a player, that player discards a card and you untap all lands you control. It equips for 2. Now, there are a few of the swords and other equipment that I am missing from this deck right now that I either A, don't have a copy of, or B, they're being used somewhere else, or C, they're out of stock. The first of them being Sword of Truth and Justice. Same with all the other swords, 3-mana to equip. Equipped creature gets +2/+2, pro, blue, and white. And then when it deals combat damage, you put a counter on it, and then you proliferate. Equips for 2. The next one is Sword of Wealth and Power. This one is 3-mana. Gives the creature +2/+2 protection from instants and sorceries. And when it hits, you make a treasure, and you can copy the next instant or sorcery that you cast, and you can choose new targets for that copy. Equips for 2. The other sword is Sword of Hearth and Home. 3-mana. Equipped creature +2/+2, green, and protection from green and white. And then when it hits, you can flicker a creature and search out a land, and then they both enter at the same time. Equips for 2. And then the last one I don't have, that I don't have any of, but it would just work in this deck, is Excalibur, Sword of Eden. It is 12 mana equipment. Spell costs X less to cast, where X is the total mana value of historic permanents you control. Equipped creature gets +10, +0, and has vigilance. And equip legendary creature for 2. It's big and stupid, but it would work in this deck. I think that's kind of it for now. Don't have this deck together yet. I just kind of have pieces of it sitting on my desk, and maybe I'll finish it in the next week or so. But until then, I'm going to call it here. And I hope you have a wonderful whatever time you happen to listen to this. Bye-bye. Thank you for listening. All of my links can be found in my link tree in the description below. I would like to thank Ian Foss and Cody Mulpey of the band The Crypt for allowing me to use music for my opening and ending, along with Nate and Erica Jacobs for making my original logo. And I would also like to thank Christina McNichol for creating my new logo. And I'll see you next time.